Hey, mental health warriors. Hope everybody's having a great Thursday. It's good to be back from vacation. Well, I took the month of August off to kind of, regenerate. Sorry for the little late delay. I've had a little computer issues, totally on my end, had nothing to do with my guest. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope everybody's doing great. I'm looking forward to this show. And you guys know what I'm going to talk about if you read my little bio feed in. But before we get started, I got a couple of announcements. One, September is Suicide Awareness Month. So let's be our brothers and sisters keepers and keep an eye out there for each other. And if you got that friend or buddy or family member who's kind of gone quiet, let's pick up the phone and give them a call and make sure they're doing okay. A lot of changes happen in September. Kids are going back to school. It can be financially difficult for a lot of families. For my family, for guys, for everybody who's been watching, you know that my family is now split again. My wife was in Rhode Island. She is now in Naples, Italy, with my youngest son, Lloyd. They left on Monday. So I'm here until December, for which in December I will leave with my oldest son and go to Naples, Italy myself. So season 3 of the Mental Health Warrior will be done in Italy. So I'm excited about that. Along with that, as you guys know, the Mental Health Warrior is now on Reads Across America Radio. You can watch this broadcast today. You can watch it tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Friday or Sundays at 10 p.m. It's super easy to find Reads Across America Radio. All you do is download your favorite radio app, whether it's iHeartRadio app, TuneIn app, or Odyssey app. You search for Wreath, and then Reach Across America comes up, and you just click that follow button. And not only can you see my great programming, but all the other great programming on there. So, with further ado, you guys are probably wondering who this lovely lady is sitting on my screen next to me. Uh, Lauren and I have got to know each other quite a bit for the last what year? Almost 2 years now.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
So you don't know, Lauren? Will you mind telling the audience a little bit about yourself and why you're on the show and why I seem so excited about it as I fiddle with my mic?
I am just as excited as you are. So I am the director of production at Amplify Publishing Group, which means I was also Cliff's editor when he published, and I'm going to show it
Mhm.
up, Mental Health Warrior. Uh, Very excited. It's a beautiful book, just both inside and out. But so what I do is I've been in book publishing. I'm in my 5th year. And so essentially what I do is I project manage books from start to finish. So that's manuscript, cover design, layout, printing. So kind of all of that good stuff, getting a book, to really look like a book. And so I'm really living my dream. I have a background in academia and writing, but I just love working on books. And so working on Cliffs was a dream, and I just feel so honored to be here and to talk to everyone about all of this. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a very educational journey, with Bill and I, who actually authored the book
Yeah.
about me, and just to learn the whole process of publishing because you think you know it, but then in reality you don't. And so, I've gone out and done some book signings and some other stuff. And oh, by the way, I get a lot of compliments on the cover.
Oh, that's so
People like
gratifying.
how it feels. And then we had a party on Saturday, a going away party for Lloyd. And so a lot of his teachers came from the school he went through merit school, the private school.
Oh,
And so they all wanted to buy a book. And so today I was getting text messages from because I delivered them yesterday. I signed them and delivered them. And they were saying, "Oh, the cover is so nice. We love it." But then one was saying about the quality of the paper, how it felt soft when she
oh
was
good.
reading it and stuff. And I thought that was kind of I never thought about that before. But and then I had to go get a book and open it and make
Right,
sure
right.
understand what she was saying. Uh, but that's if you know nothing about publishing, and Bill and I didn't know any publishing a book, you're getting into that. And Bill did a good job with his background as a forensic,
Oh yeah.
psychiatrist, and a lot of work went in, and he did a lot of editing and stuff. But questions I get, and the reason I wanted you to come on, not just talk about my book, is I've been extremely happy and satisfied with Amplify, with going through the process. And really, what I would like for you to do, if you wouldn't mind, to my audience members, because I get this asked a lot, why did you choose a hybrid publisher? Why didn't you self publish? Why didn't you go with a big publisher? Which we had an offer from a big publisher, and, we had that option. But really for people out there who like me, who hasn't got into it, let's in 15 minutes or so take them through, from an idea of a book to having it published as the mental health warrior book that we're going to talk about today later on. Could you do that, please, Lauren?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of my bread and butter, and I just love talking about kind of the different options out there and how it all happens and gets started. So I think the best place to start is just kind of thinking about first the different models and then kind of how you then publish your book through them. So, Cliff, you and I did hybrid publishing, and that's kind of where I work at Amplify. So, the nice thing about hybrid is that you bring your book to us, you bring your vision, and we do everything we can to honor that vision and make sure the story that's being told is yours. And so, you get to keep the copyright, you get to have, your authorial intervention, you get cover approval. So, we kind of do all of the behind the scenes backstage work so that you can enjoy the creative process. And so what makes that different from traditional publishing, which I think a lot of your viewers will know as, Penguin Random House or HarperCollins, Simon and Schuster, they're known as the Big Five. And so for those kinds of publishers, there's kind of a lot of gatekeeping that comes with it. You normally need an agent in order to get you to a publisher. And then often you don't get to own the copyright. So the publisher can kind of do whatever they want. And so it just kind of, while you get more visibility because you have these big marketing budgets from these big companies, but at the end of the day, you don't necessarily have control over who uses your story. And when it's a personal story like Cliff's, that can be problematic. And so I think that is something that's really special about us. And then there's also self-publishing, which I think is a great option, kind of depending on your needs. So that is a little bit more, I guess, low maintenance in a sense. So it requires
Yeah.
kind of a lot less resources up front. It's done mostly digitally. And I think that's good for people who really only want to publish ebooks or have a really niche press and they want to sell online. So there's reasons that, different options are good for different people. But that hybrid is nice because you sort of get the best of both worlds as well. So those are kind of the three main ones, and your options
Well,
of where to go.
yeah, and you bring up a good point. So I know with Bill and I, we looked at the self publishing and we were like, well, that's just too much. We just didn't know enough to do the self publishing because it's involved, and
Yeah.
even with a hybrid publisher, when we signed a contract with Amplify, and when you do hybrid publishing, you do pay the cost up front. But in return, you make more money off per book than what you would if you went with a big, publisher and stuff.
Exactly.
And so there's pros and cons to that. We were lucky enough that, we had, was able to fulfill that and do that for the book. But, with Amplify, one thing I liked about it is when we were going through the cover of the book, right? And we went back and forth on the cover. Should we use this photo? Should we not use the photo? That process to me, I really appreciate you guys' expertise because, with Bill and I, we don't know what looks good on a cover, right? And if you're going to publish a book, you have to get something to get people's attention.
Right.
And Bill and I really relied on your guys' expertise on, what kind of design should we use? Should it be my picture? To add more of a personal flavor to it. Should it just be? I think you guys gave us like 5 or 6,
Mm-hmm.
covers to kind of choose from, and all of them were great. Don't I mean they were awesome, but just how we kind of went through that process to nail it down was pretty good. Now I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back because I'm the one that came up with using the Pentagon for the O, and
I
I
was
think
just
that's
going to mention that because I loved that idea. And I was actually going to mention that. So you read my mind.
oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'll be quiet. We'll backtrack. So, but it's 9/11's coming up. Next week, next Monday, and there's not a lot of stories out there that talk about what went on at the Pentagon. There's been quite a few books written about the World Trade Centers and everything that went on there. And I think really is for me and for Bill to share that story, and the research that he went into it was pretty amazing. And in writing the book, and I know Lauren, you were personally touched by 9/11, as anybody who lives out in the Virginia area, the DMV area was, can really remember what they did that day, and just to try to portray not only my story, but within the book there's other stories of other people and what they did on 9/11. It's not just solely Cliff Bauman's story. Bill did a great job in researching that, and so I think it's an important story, to be told, even, what, 21 years later now, 22 years later, to tell that story, because for a lot of people, and especially for me, I remember just like it was yesterday. And what I did and what I crawled over and what I saw, and all that is explained in the book. But along with that, Bill goes in and talks about other parts of my life, with the boat rescue and some
Yeah.
health self-help stuff and things like that. But I really think it's important, and I think
Mhm.
books, especially with people with PTSD and other issues. One thing I had to, because I was never a big reader, is when I'm having mental issues or whatever, one thing that I do to kind of retrain my thoughts is read a book. It's sometimes it's just that simple. You set your phone down, you go to a quiet place, maybe go sit in your yard in the sunshine or something, or just go somewhere and read a book, because what that does is that triggers something else in your brain,
Exactly.
and it makes you think differently. And I think that's why books are so important.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree with that, Lauren?
Couldn't agree more. That's kind of part of why I wanted to get into publishing, was kind of for that exact reason, because they can be so transformative, both for our mental health, but also just social change and creating avenues for people to discuss things. Because like you said, I really agree with you about how Pentagon stories, you know, are sometimes hard to come by, especially ones that are so immediate like yours and that are so on the ground. And like you said, as someone who was in the area, on 9/11, I have a lot of, memories. It's very moving to have you put that out there, because I know, especially as, populations, get young, or not get younger, but get older, and you have people who weren't there, and so this book is an amazing reminder to people who weren't there, who didn't experience it. And I think that's more important than ever.
And you're right. And I think as kids learn about this in history and knowing it, for my sons, when they learned about 9/11 in history, obviously they had a different take on it than a child who was in class whose parents wasn't there, or but even if they wasn't there, but their family was in the military. Of course, the after effects of nine
Yeah,
11 affected a lot of families with the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and so it just kind of continues as a big circle.
truly.
But it's I think storytelling is very important. I talk about this on my podcast with Mental Health Warrior, because everybody has a story, right? I have a story with my life outside of 9/11. We talk about those in the book.
Yeah.
You have stories in your life, Lauren, that are probably great adventures and things you've done. And I've had a lot of fantastic guests on my podcast that had a lot of amazing stories within their life. And a lot of people are intimidated, by publishing or writing or getting something down. And I tell them all the time, I said, well, if, you can always find a ghostwriter, right? That's an option. And I didn't know, and clarify me if I'm right or wrong. Do you guys offer that option in Amplify for ghostwriting?
We
You do. Okay. I couldn't remember.
sure.
I didn't want to say it and throw you out there, but, uh, I had a good friend of mine. He was a sniper in Afghanistan. He was at my house this past weekend, and he was talking about. He's got an amazing story about writing a book.
Oh, wow.
And of course, I'm like, hey, go talk to Bill. But then I told him about a ghostwriter, but I didn't want to say, oh, well, Amplify, you did our book. They have ghostwriters, but I couldn't remember or not if you guys had ghostwriting. So that's another option. So
Exactly.
if somebody has good stories and they can record them or just talk, I'm a good storyteller. I'm not a good writer. I know that. to sit down and type something, I lose my train of thought. My brain starts wandering.
Right.
So I know that. So that's why me and Bill worked so well as a team. Is he would sit down with me, and I guess you could say Bill was kind of my ghostwriter in a sort of way, because he would sit down with me and he would record it, and then I would tell him each of the stories in the book, and then he would go back and he would write it, and then he would call me and we'd get back together and we'd look at it, and then we'd change things and rehash things, um, and and when he went out and interviewed other people for the book, he did the same thing too. And so I think for somebody out there who has a great story, who isn't a good writer like myself, you can go out there and find a good ghostwriter, or if you're looking at a publishing company, especially with Amplify, and we looked, I think on our spreadsheet of different types of publishers, we had over 100 different companies on there that we
Oh,
researched,
wow.
narrowed it down to 3, and then chose Amplify as the one. So we did research for almost a year before we chose the publisher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we had the spreadsheet broke. I know, right? It broke
No.
down pros and cons to each and everything. I don't even know if Bill still has that Excel spreadsheet, but it was massive. It may not have been 100, but it was over 50. And we would meet on Saturdays or Sundays and sit down and said, okay, well, we talked to this publisher, or we had a meeting with this publisher. This is what they offer. This is what they don't offer. This is what they're willing to do, not willing to do. So it was a big process. With
Yeah.
anything that you get into, it's very important to know as much as you can, especially if you're trying to publish your story.
Hmm.
And I know that, of course, Bill had wrote everything, and we met with you editors and went through that process. Um, but you guys were very sympathetic at times to our ignorance. And I say that kind of laughingly. But, some things that we would argue about, and we argued a couple of times, we did. And you guys are very polite and kind, and we're like, okay, well, quit being stupid. This is not how it works in this arena. And then Bill and I would have to go back and reread our contract and look at stuff. But that was just part of the learning process for us. And that's part of doing business, right? You can't always be laughing and joking and carry on. But it was, I think for anybody listening out there who's thinking about, publishing a book or getting a book published or telling a story, because stories are so impactful to people because it brings a face to something. And I got on my screensaver in the back. It's not my normal mental health warrior. This is actually an ad campaign that the Ad Council did with the Brady Foundation for gun violence, and just learning how to lock up your guns. And I was very thankful to be a part of that. But they came up with this picture, and it says my suicide attempt was because of 9/11,
Right.
and I just really thought it was appropriate to change my back screen to have that on, and that was really a great project to work on with them to tell another story. But along with that, Lauren, I would like for you to, first of all, you can go out to amplify.com. You can see my book out there. If you use the code Warrior, and I'll say it again, you can save 20% on the book. The QR code you see on the screen, that is for my website. You can go to my website if you want a signed book from me, a personally signed book. It's going to be a little bit more expensive because I have to charge a little bit more for shipping than Amplify does. But the only caveat to that is I can sign the book. But either way, whichever way you get the book, it's perfectly fine for us. We're just happy that you get that and read the story. Um, but with Amplify, I know they have my book and it's great. But you got some really other great books, and I would like just for you to really tell people about Amplify, what books you guys have out there, what are upcoming, and what's kind of what you guys have on your website, because a lot of people haven't heard of Amplify, and you're based in Virginia, which
That's
is awesome.
right. Hmm. Yeah, that is one of the
Mhm.
things that I kind of love the most about us is how local we are and how connected to the community we are. So we have ties to kind of where we are,
And
but
that was a deciding factor, by the way.
sorry?
That was a deciding factor too that you were in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
They like that fact.
It's interesting that you say that because a lot of my authors who are local kind of say the same thing. And I really think that's a huge asset for us. But not to digress, but yeah, so we have, so we work on the whole spectrum of books. So I worked on everything from books about science to children's books, memoirs,
Mhm.
history, fiction, poetry. And so we kind of run the whole gamut. And so the nice thing about Amplify is that we have different imprints. So for our great fiction titles, we have Subplot, which is one of our imprints, Mascot
Mm.
Kids. So it's really exciting to see kind of how we're growing. We're building our ghostwriting network to kind of plug that back in.
Nice.
It's been so fun kind of being able to help more and more authors bring their stories. And so right now we've got, I mean, more and more, we just have just great new releases. I swear with every year, there's just more fun stuff coming out. We have a book about called Running Out of Time, Wildfires in Our Imperiled Forest. I worked on that one. That one is just wonderful. And so we just publish everything. We work from anyone from the C-suite to teachers to just really anyone, chefs, Cliff, just everyone,
Yeah.
military,
Yeah.
sports. So, we kind of have a home for everyone, and I think that's what we really like as well. Coffee table books, and so we're really kind of proud of that, of having such a range, and all of our design work is done in house, and so that's also kind
Mhm.
of a really nice thing that has to do with Amplify or hybrid publishing in general is that, like you said, paying the costs up front, totally true. But we also do cover design. We put the whole book together. So it's kind of taking all that guesswork off your plate and just giving you that product. So yeah, we're really broad, wide ranging, and happy to kind of work with all stories because we know they're all important.
Well, and that was another one of our deciding factors is when we looked at other hybrid publishers is they subcontracted a lot of that out.
Okay.
And so a lot of the in-house things that you guys did, these processes was subcontracted out. And that kind of made Bill and I a little leery because then you're like, look, okay, now the book's going to go over here, then it's going to go over there, and then, it was, sometimes even just going through the different departments with inside, working in an office, it can be difficult. So we couldn't imagine. So we kind of steered away from the ghostwriting. We went not the ghostwriting, but the editing and all that. We know that you guys contract out. That's those aren't in
Right.
house. Or at least there wasn't at the time we did our book, and that kind of stuff we kind of get. But some things we just didn't really understand why they wasn't, in house and stuff like that. But I get asked a lot, hey, why didn't your book come out last year? And for a lot of people who don't know this, there was a huge backlog in publishing books. There was a shortage of paper, and there was all kinds of things that went on outside of our control. And so, if you've noticed that books that kind of slowed down for a while coming out, and I tell people this, I said, yeah, there was a huge shortage of paper, and a lot of people didn't understand it, or just didn't know. I mean, if you're not part of it, why would you know that?
Right.
But yeah, they were kind of surprised knowing that there was such a huge shortage of papers and materials and stuff.
Absolutely.
So, hey, Brian, thanks for joining. Sorry, somebody just tuned in. So,
Oh, yeah.
hey, just guys, just so you know, I didn't sign in on my Facebook account. I was having issues, so I'm not going to be able to answer any of your messages, but I will hit you up after the program's over. So, I just want to throw that out there. So, go ahead, Lauren. I'm sorry.
I see hello from Southern Appalachia. That's great.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work in Appalachia, so hello. Very exciting.
And you didn't say it correctly, Appalachia, not Appalachian.
Yep, exactly. I'm actually
I'm
working.
part of a Facebook group of Appalachia, and it's funny. There's like 700,000 in there, but I just love it because they post pictures of people farming and countryside and all kind. I just love it anyway. So I just
Me
want to
too.
throw
Oh
that out
no,
there.
you're speaking my language, so I'm right there with you. And yeah, and I guess in case, I guess maybe people have inferred by now, but both Cliff and I are in Virginia, so it's nice to
Hmm.
kind of have that connection. And so, and I agree about in-house services. That was also what really drew me to Amplify when I first started over 4 years ago. Is that I love that everything is in-house, so we get to do the layout in-house. house. We've got marketing, bookkeeping, editorial, design, all of that we do in house, except for when we bring on freelance editors to really go through the whole manuscript.
Sure.
That's usually one of the
Mhm.
only times. And so otherwise, it's really our team that we've worked with for years. And so, yeah, I'm really proud of that.
And I will tell you that when we signed our contract, because you'll sign a contract with them, is that all that was laid out in the contract. Of course, I was a contracting officer for 15 plus years in the military, and so the contract was something that I really dove into a lot and read. It's just normal stuff. Anytime you sign a contract or hire somebody to do something, you need to have it in writing,
Yes.
and you need to make sure that both parties understand expectations, right? Because if you don't, then that creates a lot of problems and issues, and I'm sure you know how that is, Lauren, on your end. But as you go out and you think about writing a book or buying any kind of books, I would say go out to Amplify's website. They have a lot of good books out there, and just covers all gamut. Now, there is some confusion. Now, you guys are Amplified, but are you still Mascot, or did that combine together,
Good
or
question.
is that still two separate things?
Oh, no, it's a good question.
Can you talk about that or no? I didn't know if I should have brought that up because
No, 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 you
that
got it.
gets confusing.
No,
Okay,
that's
okay,
perfect. So I'm glad you
yeah.
brought that up. So, because I've gotten that question sometimes because it's kind of a newer change. So, we are Amplify
Mhm.
Publishing Group, but within that, we have these imprints. So, we have Mascot Books, Mascot Kids, Subplot, Amplify. So, one way of looking at it is in traditional publishing, you'll have maybe Penguin Random House, but within that, there's all these other kind of sub imprints,
Oh,
and we do the same thing. So we're all kind of
okay,
one big family. We do all of those together. It's just kind of under the umbrella term.
okay.
Yeah,
So that where the group comes from. So that's good to know,
exactly.
right?
And that way everything gets its
So
own logo. And so everything kind of has its own niche, which is just kind of a way that we're able to bring the traditional publishing experience a little more into ours because we really try to bring as much traditional as we can while staying true to the hybrid, which allows you higher royalties and the copyright and all that.
Mhm. And I will tell you that when you paying for the book, of course, we paid for all the upfront costs. You want to get more money back on the royalties because that just allows you to get your money back that you invested because it's not cheap. It wasn't
Yeah.
cheap. And
Mm-hmm.
but some of the things that we paid extra for was our choice, right? Like I wanted the hardcover back, and then I
All
wanted
right.
a certain paper, and then I wanted the raised
This,
just silly stuff that
yeah,
I wanted. But yeah, you can actually feel it. You can feel
I
the
know.
bumps on it. I know.
I love it.
Yeah. But to me, as a suicide survivor and as somebody who's gone down that ugly road that I talk about all the time, that's why I do my podcast. That's why Bill and I chose to do this book. Is It's something that's very important, but it's something that a lot of people don't like talking about. And there's things in this book that bother me to read. There's things in this book that has bothered my family for them to read and see. And but I think also for the little bit of pain that it causes me, I think it's important to tell that because it kind of makes it real. It kind of puts a face to it. Cliff Bauman's this, big alpha male and laughing, joking kind of guy. And I went from that to a person who almost died by his own hand. I mean, that's pretty powerful to do. And if somebody had told me that I was going to wind up there, and that story's in this book,
Yeah.
you can get this book and read that story, is I never would have believed him.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have thought ever in my life that I would have got to that point, but I did. But I understand now how I got to that point, and that's why I tried to do what I do, and try to help as many people out there as possible to, you know, think differently. Right. I do a mental health minute every day that I post on my social media on Veterans Trash Talk and then also on mine. And today I just did a quick three things on. I think you'll like this, Lauren. I said I think your life is better now than what it was last year at this time,
Mm.
and I said because you made a change, right? And what else did I say? I just drew a blank. What was it? It was change. You stuck to your goals, and then something else. They have to go on Facebook and read it. But that's what I was saying. That you made a change in your life. You set some goals. You achieved those goals, and then whatever the third thing is, I'd have to look on my phone. But I think it's just I just think it's important. And I know on Amplify because you and I wish I could remember the name of the book that you sent me because I read it of an author because it was good. Because you sent it to me because you wanted me to see the cover.
That's right.
And I had it and I read it and somebody borrowed it. And it was a lady that wrote it. It was a woman that wrote the book. And what the
I
oh
can't believe
man.
I don't remember this. I remember us sending the book, but I'm drawing a blank. It would have been a spot class. So,
It was a good book. It was
oh,
a
I'm so.
self-help book. Motivation. So anyway, I do a bunch.
Was it
Uh
expansive impact? No, that wasn't it.
no.
I'll look it. I'm
No.
curious. I'll have to look it up.
I know. Anyway, I just drove. I'm sorry, but yeah, it was a good book, and I would go upstairs and get it, except for somebody borrowed it because they saw it and they read it and they wanted to have it, so I gave it to them to read. Um, but
I'm glad.
being yeah, I know, being Suicide Awareness Month, and Lauren and I'm not to put you on the spot, and if you don't want to say anything, you don't have to say anything. But I would love for you, being the person that you are, if you could give anybody advice right now today, what would advice would you give them? And if they were having issues or problems or something, or not even to that, what would be your life advice that you would share with somebody?
Hmm.
And you can think about that for a second.
Yeah. I would say finding something that you can do every day, and it doesn't have to be the same thing every day, but finding maybe one thing that you can do that day that can propel you forward. So whether it could be, the smallest possible thing, like doing the dishes, because we're all in our different states of emotion. So it's always a continuum. So finding just one thing. So whether you get up and, if you're in a dark place, you take a shower, that's your one thing. And then
Yeah.
obviously, depending on where you are, that one thing might be bigger and bigger, like writing one chapter of a book. And so I think that for myself sometimes too, when things are just seeming, impossible, just based on the world and how it impacts all of us, I try to find that one thing that I can do that day that I can feel good about. And that's kind of what strikes me, off the top of my head. But also, not to be kind of a cliche, but writing, and it doesn't have to be a lot. Sometimes if writing just one sentence that day, just on a post-it, in a journal, wherever, maybe that's kind of enough to kind of get you focused. So I'd say that's kind of what I would suggest off the top of my head.
You know, and you know what? That's great advice because one thing I talk about a lot is doing something small. Because when somebody tries to make big changes, I think at times you set yourself up for failure. So if you try to do that one small thing, and I say make my bed, take a shower, do dishes, do something, so then you get that one win right off the bat, right?
Exactly.
I got up, I made my bed, got the one win, and I'm good to go. One thing I talk about a lot on my show is I'm bringing up my phone here for a reason. And I don't know if you ever heard about this app. There's an app out there. It's probably the best mental health app I've ever ran across. And I had a lady that developed it on my show twice.
Oh,
She's from Sweden. But it's called Ear Kick.
ooh,
And let's see, bring it up.
oh,
And
oh,
so it has an AI panda, and you can go in and you do your journaling
oh,
and you type it, speak it, and then they have like little I don't know if you can see little emojis that you choose.
mm,
This is mine from yesterday. And so and you just go through and you're like, oh, I slept good today, sleep good. Um, and but the AI Panda remembers what you wrote. This thing.
oh, okay.
This is what I like about it. Try to have storms here, so if the internet starts getting too goofy, we might have to end it. But let's say you put in there last week. I attended a funeral because so and so passed away. The following week, the panda will remember that, and it will ask, "How are you
Mm,
doing?" or "Can I give you resources?" or it'll remember that. Like I've been doing a lot of car shows lately, and it'll ask me, "Well, how was your car show? How did it go?" You can have conversations with the panda if you want,
mm,
yourself. And then along with that, they have videos on there for anxiety. They have some of
mm.
the best video I've ever seen for anxiety.
Wow.
And the guy explains it this way. Yeah, I'm hooked on Earkick. They don't pay me. They don't give me any money. They don't give me anything. But this app for people to use, not military, not males, females, whatever, kids can use this app.
Oh, okay.
It really helps, and it makes journaling so easy. So you can speak it, you can text
Mm,
it, and so it makes it, and then or you can just pick emojis on
mm,
your emotions, and the AI understands that. But it was interesting. So in the video, it's about an 8 minute long video. The guy's talking about anxiety and how to deal with it. And he says, so when thoughts come in your mind, right? A thought in itself has never hurt anybody. A
mm,
thought can't hurt you. A thought can lead to you hurting yourself, but a thought in itself can't hurt you.
right.
But it can make other changes and make your heart race. It can make you sweat, make all this anxiety. So he explained it this way. He says, so when those thoughts come into your head, think of yourself as in a tunnel and you're the conductor up in a tower.
Mm,
And these trains are just zooming by and just let those thoughts go by. But as he goes through this video, a second he'll stop and have you do breathing exercises.
nice.
And then he'll start the video and start explaining the video again. And it's pretty amazing. I was never one to really journal, but one thing that it does is it tracks your anxiety levels.
Oh,
It'll track
interesting.
It'll track weather patterns based on what you put on there. It
Oh, I have
tracks,
to get this. This is incredible.
your top 5 activities on what you did, um, and so it tracks your and I'm just showing you a snippet, but I mean, these things have pages that I can scroll through,
Wow. And
and
like
that was
it's
for your
push
mood, and
patterns and
it charts it. Mhm.
mm,
So let's say February. Why am I always depressed or have more anxiety in February? Well, you can go back now if you've been using this since last year and look at maybe it was the weather, or maybe it was something going on in your life, or maybe it was a date that you don't really associate with something, but you put it in there. And now that's coming back around again, you're starting to have anxiety, like I do with, 9/11 or October 3rd when I did the boat rescue and those kinds of things. And now it tracks that, but also tracks the weather pattern. It tracks,
mm,
what you were doing. It tracks all these different matrices for free. And then now you can start compiling a story of why that was occurring and why that was happening. And it has music on there. It has 1 minute breathing exercises. And so I will tell you, if you have anybody in your office or anybody that just wants to know that, or anybody listening, and I post it all the time, it's just ear kick, just like it says, EARKICK, and it's free to download for Android and for iPhones, or you can use it on your computer. But it's by far the best mental health app I've ever came across,
wow.
and just the ease of using, and they've really developed the AI Panda, where it's pretty amazing to where now you can have conversations with it, and it gives you. I didn't see what the motivational tip. Let's see what it said today. Let's see what Panda had to say. It says, oh wait, I didn't do my chat today, so he's not going to tell me.
Oh,
Let me see. I'm gonna say something real quick. Slept good, great podcast, and then he's gonna give me something. See, now if you want to get something, you have to give him something.
oh, okay, okay.
I'll go back and do it more detail later. Okay, so now he's giving me.
Hmm.
Okay, so based what I put on now, Panda's he's writing out. He's talking to me now.
Wow.
So he just said that based on what I said. So he said, "Great job on getting good night's sleep. It's important to prioritize rest and relaxation, especially during challenging times." See, he knows what's going on in my life because I talked about the move. Keep
Wow.
up the good work and continue to take care of yourself. Remember to also prioritize self care activities that make you feel good. Exercise, meditation, spending time with loved ones, blah, blah, blah. Keep up the positive momentum.
Oh, nice. I like
And then you check yourself. Yeah. Isn't that nice? So his daily quote
it.
today was, in the end, it's not the years in your life that count,
Mhm.
it's the life in your years. Abraham Lincoln.
Very
That was his
oh,
quote for the day.
that's a
And
great
so I got that quote by filling it out. So,
And I like how
Lauren.
it kind of caters to different abilities. You know, if you can speak it, you
Mhm,
know, you can type it in, the emoji. So it kind of caters to people who are think differently or have different physical abilities. So I really like that too.
mhm.
That's great.
Yeah, and I will tell you, she has an amazing story. The person who developed that and how they came across that. I'm excited because when I go to Italy, hopefully I plan to go and meet her in person, her and her founder. And so it's pretty amazing. But hey, listen, Lauren, I want to say thank you for coming on my podcast. Anytime you want to come back on, feel free. Or any of you new aspiring authors who are having a book come out, if they want to come on my podcast, I would love to have them come on and talk about their book. Feel free to share my information. But before we leave, do you have any last parting words for anybody?
I just encourage everyone just write. It doesn't matter. Just put whatever you want on the page. Don't put pressure on yourself. It's okay. Just throw it on there. And I promise you'll feel better and it might lead to something. So that is my takeaway.
That's right. And you never know, and it could.
Yeah.
But hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Just remember, you can catch this podcast along with other great podcasts on Reese Across America Radio. Mine shows at Friday at 8 p.m., and then it replays again on Sunday at 10 p.m. You can find that on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, or the TuneIn app. It's super easy to find. You just type in Reese, and then Reese Across America Radio comes in. I'm wearing the Season 2 T-shirt to Veterans Trash Talk Mental Health Warrior. And you can get that out on the newly designed website, the newly designed. But on the back of my T-shirt, I don't know if you've seen this yet. This is what I wrote to put on the back of the T-shirt. To the
Oh,
person behind me, you're a warrior, you're worthy, you matter. The person in front of you. So
wow.
I put that on
I
the
love
back
that.
of the T-shirt.
That's
Yeah.
great.
But hey, everybody, it is Suicide Awareness Month, but every month is Suicide Awareness. Every day, every hour, every minute. Be sure to look out for each other. If somebody is in crisis, you guys know on my first T-shirt, season 1 T-shirt, I put it's amazing how many people don't know this crisis number.
Oh, wow.
You text home to 741-741, and anybody can speak to a crisis
Mm.
counselor. Along with that, you can dial 988. Also, just like 911, dial 988 and go out and speak to somebody. Because I will tell you that even if you don't think you're important to somebody, and they love you and they want you here tomorrow. And with that, you guys have a great evening. Have a great, safe weekend. I will be on the Veterans Trash Talk Saturday show on Saturday at 5 p.m. to talk about the book. I shipped the book out to the VTT guys so they can read it. Hopefully, they read it. It wasn't in color and didn't have crayons with it, so I don't know if they did or not. But, but Lauren, I want to thank you. I want to thank Amplify for making mine and Bill's dream come true
Thank
of
you.
being to go out there and put my story in print. And your guys' professionalism and all that you've done for us,
Oh, thank you.
in the past 2 years. We truly appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Everybody have a great